Zoom to YouTube.
I believe we're streaming live now.
We are not.
We're not? It says that we are.
Where?
Meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. So if anyone's watching, we're working this out for the first time and don't really know what we're doing.
Smashing.
I'm guessing, are we, Devon, can you confirm? Devon, can you confirm? Are we live? I can't hear Devon. Look, I think I'm just going to have to go for it. So as far as I can tell, we're live. That's great. And we're just, like, I'm chatting, but I can just see Erin, but I'm assuming that folks can see me. Erin, can you see me?
Yes.
Great. All right, I'm going to keep going with that then. Before I keep going, I would like to acknowledge that I am fortunate enough to be coming to you via the live Zoomy / YouTube thing from the traditional lands of the Gadu Banaud people. And that the drill hall, which is where the Penelopiad was at, is on the traditional lands of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I want to pay respects to all Aboriginal elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So, as I have been saying, and as we're trying to work things out, this is our first live streamed interview. So those of you who are watching, welcome. Thank you for being with us. For those of you who don't know me, I am Sal Frances. I am one of the trainers at Women's Circus. I've been hanging around like a bad smell for a very, very long time. I was not involved in the production of the Penelopiad, but I did get to see it live, and it was pretty powerful stuff to be there for that show. And I do remember sitting in that show, and as a acrobalance base, watching the show and seeing in it somebody who I hadn't really seen before, had never trained with, had never taught at Women's Circus, and was like, wow, that's a pretty good flyer there. Who's that? Got to know who that is. That's Erin. We're going to be chatting to Erin in a minute. I'm very excited about it. I'm also very happy to see Erin for the first time since lockdown. Yeah, I'm certainly missing all of my acro play pals. So I'm very happy about today. But a couple of things that I should mention. If you missed it, we are launching the new YouTube channel. And thank you for sharing a trip down memory lane with us today for 2016's The Penelopiad. So the show featured an ensemble cast of 30 members of Women's Circus. At its core, it explored the silencing of women's stories and the prevalence of violence against women in our culture. It's an ancient story that still speaks to us today. It's a story that gives a voice to the voiceless within history and lets them speak, sing, and dance. Big shout out to Steph Keogh, who I know was watching for at least a little bit, who directed the show, and to Karen Berger, who was the musical director. And a massive shout out to the team of members, volunteers, staff, and artists who work together to bring it to life. It really does take a village to raise a Women's Circus show. As I mentioned before, I'm joined today by Erin, who is one of the amazing community artists and performers from the Penelopiad, and a long time now Women's Circus member. Erin Adams, welcome, buddy. Thanks for joining me on this really, really cold afternoon. I'm keeping warm by the light of the cat. There's actually a fireplace behind me, but we don't know if we can use it. And there's a little patch just down in that corner there. I don't know if you can see it. There's ocean there. I've managed to get out of town. I know that Erin also got out of town for a bit this weekend. But yeah, before we get into diving into questions about the show and about Women's Circus, let's maybe find out a little bit more about Erin. So Erin, when you are not tumbling around the drill hall or climbing on me or others of our acro mates or wheeling around in a German wheel, how do you keep yourself busy, mate?
Well, I have a day job, so I work at Union House Theatre, which is a wonderful place for student theatre and lots of artistic people. But apart from that, I do really weird smell designs and scent designs for art, which is kind of cool. And at the moment, because I've been stuck in my little apartment in Footscray now for several months, I've been really going on a deep dive into virtual reality because I have a virtual reality headset here. So Beat Saber master in making.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty extraordinary. Erin has also travelled to outer space for a women's circus show. And also in terms of the scent design, if anyone got along to the drill last year, there were quite a few amazing, like we had different spaces and different smells for the spaces. And I remember being there during the creative production, creative processes for the production. And there was a hospital room, and we trialed a few different smells for that, Erin. There was one in particular. We were kind of in a circle, and people were kind of passing it around. Just have a little smell of that, and it got to me like, I don't know why everyone kept smelling it, because everyone was just going, "Oh God." And then passing it to the next person, who would then take a sniff. I was at the end of the circle. It got past me. I was like, I'm good. Can you tell us a bit about that smell journey, mate?
For that particular thing, we were making the smell of a hospital. So I had got hold of some smell of urine and also some very strong sort of antiseptic hospital smell from a 1914 English war hospital. And it was a lot.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. Definitely. It certainly made for a very, very immersive,
visceral experience.
Yep, definitely. So, a couple of other questions for you, pal. When did you become a member of Women's Circus, and why?
Well, I'm terribly bad at years, but I think I joined about 5 years ago-ish. But maybe more, maybe 6 years ago. And the reason I joined was because I used to live like way up in Coburg, and I moved to Footscray, and I can literally walk to the drill hall, and I kept seeing it and seeing little flyers of it. And then eventually I got brave enough and I just went along to a come and try. And I thought it was going to be so bad. And I was, and it was hilarious. So yeah, it was really good. It was mainly, I kept seeing it and wondering what it was and being curious and kind of like investigating it. And then eventually I was like, just do it.
I love that. I actually love that you're like, oh, I thought I was going to be really bad, and I was. And for those of you who are with us who've just watched the show, you can see obviously that Erin went on quite a journey from bad, and has just continued to leap forward in terms of skills since the Penelopiad.
Thanks, Sal. Yeah. But I do remember like telling my mum at Christmas, I was like 31 years old, and I was like, I'm going to join the circus. And she's like, you're what? And I had like no experience. So yeah.
Well, I reckon you've been making up for it, mate. But I'm going to call you out on I was way up in Coburg. When I first joined Women's Circus, I lived out in the Dandenong Ranges and so
respect.
No, none of this Coburg. So I'm in Coburg now. Crazy little drive. It's not too big, mind you. Traveling to Women's Circus at the moment for work involves walking to the back room of my house and putting the heaters on.
Yeah.
So skills that you focus on. So we saw that you did a bit of acrobalance in the show. You did a bit of, was there a bit of tumbling in there from you as well?
A little bit, I think,
Yeah. Any aerials, mate?
No. I did. So when I did the first like season of Women's Circus, where you get to try all the different things, I thought I really wanted to do aerials, and I was so excited. And then I did it, and I'm like, this is not my jam. No. I was like, it's so much effort. And I know lots of people love it, and respect to everyone that does aerials, but I'm very much a ground-based human.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get pretty high off the ground for ground-based stuff. But, yeah. But I feel like I have a similar thing with aerials. It's just like pain and fear. But I still like it anyway. And just for anyone who is kind of tuned in, that's like, oh, what is this opening thing where you get to try everything? That is our new crew program. That is something that I have the absolute joy of teaching with Franca Stadler, who is our resident trainer and our head rigger. And it's a glorious time. We play lots of games, have lots of fun, do a lot of ensemble stuff. But yeah, we do, as Erin said, just like we tried lots and lots of different types of circus skills. We kind of try and touch on everything we can. I'm assuming that one of the things you did in that first year was a bit of German wheel, mate.
Yes. I was going to say, when I did that first class, every week I'd come home and I couldn't get to sleep. I was so excited because we'd done stilts or we'd done juggling and just all this stuff that I'd never done before. And I was like, oh. But yeah, when we did wheel, I was like, this is the best thing in the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to say, you make wheel look pretty good. You made it look pretty intergalactically awesome at the Cabaret a couple of years ago.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Also, what I love about that in terms of, you know, Erin's performance. Erin, you're a great performer, mate. And I do love you. Really held that space beautifully and managed to not even be upstaged by the puppet that was in that piece, which for anyone who missed it was a floating poo.
Yeah.
So there was some poopetry involved in that show. So let's maybe bring it into the Penelopiad, seeing as we've all just watched the Penelopiad. Maybe if you can talk us through a little bit about the creative process of making and working on the Penelopiad, and if you had like a favorite moment or something that was particularly challenging.
Okay. Creatively, I remember it was a huge challenge because I'd never actually been in a show before. So there was a lot of rehearsals and it was a really big group and we had we had a bit of a script, but essentially it was a devised show. So that was an amazing process to go through. And I think with all shows, lots of community theatre, it's often more fun to be in than to watch. So I always feel really jealous of people who are in the shows. So it was really good. But like when I was thinking about my memories of this show, this is really bad, but my favourite memory of all time was actually the food, because I was like, I remember that I think it was Em and Sim catered for everyone backstage every night. So we had these amazing, beautiful meals all together before every show. And it was a real kind of communal time and you got to hang out with everyone. And I was like, that was almost better than the show for me because it was like beautiful food, but also beautiful people. And it was like a really community. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, shout out to Em and Sim for that. That is something that has been a tradition for a lot of women's circus shows, particularly our big shows, to have a cooking crew and to eat together and, you know, go through notes before each show and stuff like that. And it is excellent. We've got a comment here from Elle, who is also in the show, and I'm going to read it as it is written: the food. So I guess that's another shout out there to Em and Sim for making that happen. So
yeah, and part of those hangouts backstage, I think that was the first time kind of in my life where I really got some like cross-generational relationships, because until then everyone I'd hung out with was basically my age, give or take 5 years, in all the sports that I'd played and everything. And suddenly I was like sitting down with people like way younger than me. Like I remember learning from someone how to text, like, you know how you do a shape on your phone? I didn't even know that because I'm old. And then at the same time, I know you're like, what? And then I was like hanging out with people that were like 30 years older than me and just telling me these like legendary stories about women's circus when it got started that had been in every show and things like that. And that to me was like a really phenomenal experience.
Yeah, shout out to Annie, who was in the Penelopiad, who has been in every show. There's quite a few people who are close. Oh, and Vig. Yeah, no, Vig was definitely in the Penelopiad.
In it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, yeah, I mean, we've been kicking around for a long time, so that's no mean feat. But the other thing that I like about shows as well, and the things that you don't really expect, and the interactions that you have with people, because there's a script on stage, there's kind of like an indirect then kind of like script backstage, because you're kind of passing through different areas backstage at the same time every night, and other people also have their same schedule backstage. And I remember there's one memory in particular that I love, and I do want to mention it because I know that there are a lot of people here who would love to take a moment to think about Noel Rogers, who was a member of Women's Circus many, many years ago, who passed away a few years ago. Total bloody legend. Backstage in Auditorium, I think, in 2003, when Jenny and Christina were on stage doing their tissue act. There was just the moment where I'd pass by Noel and we would just do this weird, like completely improv avant-garde duo dance piece together. It was superb. Love those moments. They're a good time. Was there a thing in particular that was challenging?
Yeah, I think a really challenging thing for me personally was that because I work and watch a whole lot of theatre, but I've actually never been in theatre. I was like, I have to be this amazing. And then I got in there and I was like, but I have to just let go of my ego and just do what I can, kind of thing. So I think it was really kind of liberating for me to be like, this is the value of like community theatre. It's wonderful. And actually, like, I think at that time I also had just read Just Kids by Patti Smith, where she just is like, fuck it, fuck imposter syndrome. It's like you can make art out of any area that you feel like. And it's like, if you feel like doing something, you don't actually have to be the best in the world to do it. You can kind of just like get out there and have a go. And it's like, I don't know, I think that's a little bit that what's happening at the moment, because we're having these huge areas of like theatre and production and stuff kind of aren't possible to do anymore, that things are going to become more like hyper local and more like we're going to have these experiences where people are actually going to see community theatre and maybe tiny audiences as well. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I feel more liberated, I think, since doing that show. I'm like, yeah, I could put something on in the one night in Footscray that's coming up. Like, I could do this, and like you kind of feel like you can do anything. And yeah.
That's great. This is like, I was actually going to ask you what your thoughts were about, you know, like being in a kind of post-COVID world now, and around that whole live theatre experience, having to change and having to, you know, find a new shape for itself. Would you have any thoughts on what a women's circus show might look like? Or like, even if it's like, you know, we've just done a big show, and it's interesting. Like, I've been talking to Devon about how our creative producer, who we've been talking about how the drill essentially was like, because it was kind of segmented and there were different parts of the theatre space that people had the immersive experience within, and in smaller groups. It was almost like it could potentially be like a bit of a practice run for what something might look like post-COVID. But yeah, have you had any thoughts about what things might look like going forward?
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of ideas, like the Promenade Theatre, which is what you're talking about, where you walk through different spaces. So you could take over a large space. And I don't know if anyone went to the last big Snuff Puppets party. It was similar to that. It was like you went into different areas. But also, like, instead of being really sad about what we've lost, we've been thinking a lot like about what good can come out of this. And I think on reflection, like in the past, nearly all of my all-time favorite audience experiences have actually been really tiny shows. Like, there've been shows where it's a one-on-one audience or like 10 people in the audience, and they're really intimate, and you can smell their fear, or you're the audience fear of being audience participated or something like that. And that's the stuff that like really, really kind of sticks with me. And I think that is what is going to be the future at the moment, like at least the near future of stuff. So maybe Promenade performance, but maybe also really kind of individual, small little cabarets.
Can I just, on that whole, you're talking about being able to smell the fear. Maybe this is, unless anyone throws in another question, we might wind up on this one, but I was going to say, how would you, in your role as a scent designer, go about creating the smell of fear?
Oh, I've thought about this a lot. It's very unethical. So if you make people very afraid, so you play them a horror film or you literally scare them a lot, and then you take like sweat samples from them and then you distill that and then you spray it on someone, it can make them afraid. And the same works with anger and other things like that. So you could, without telling them, make an audience really, really scared by spraying them with other people's like fear smells. I haven't done it.
Done it?
I haven't done it just before I get in trouble. I've just imagined doing it.
Wow. Okay, that's some science going on there. Spooky science. Mate, it is so nice to see you. And I hope there's a few folks out there that have gotten to watch today that are also, you know, just like, oh, it's my mate. But yeah, we're gonna wind it up, but just want to remind folks about next month. But thanks so much for coming along, Erin. It's been so great to have you here, and like I said, so nice to see you.
No worries. Thanks, Sal.
It's a pleasure. It's a total pleasure. I'm not 100% sure what show we're going to do next month, July 26th.
Ghosts.
It is Ghosts. That's what I thought. Great, excellent. So Ghosts was it was our last show that we did at Shed 14. We did, I think, 3 shows that I know of. There might have been 4. The first show I ever saw of Women's Circus was in 2000, and it was The Island, and that was at Shed 14, and it just blew my mind what a community could do. And I had already, you know, dipped my toes in circus a little bit, and got along to that and was like, I just need to be involved in this community. This is incredible. And the following year we did Secrets, which was Sarah Cathcart, who had been artistic director for 5 years. Kim Basson had been musical director for 5 years. That was their last show. And the following year, Andrea Lemon came on board as artistic director, and we did our final show at the start of the next year at Shed 14 called Ghosts, and it was pretty epic. And it was, I had been teching the year before or the show before, and I was like, even though I'd been training, I just kind of wanted to keep up or consolidate my tech skills, and so I was up in the SCAF, in the sound booth. I'd been doing stage management stuff with that, but it was one of those shows that I basically got to watch from the best seat in the house every night, and and enjoyed it thoroughly. So yeah, cool. I think we're going to wind up with that though. So yeah, just again, July 26th, 4 p.m. I believe David and Margay will be introducing that one as well. If you missed that, because we kind of like I said, it's the first time we've done this. I'm sure we'll iron out a few kinks. But if anyone missed David and Margay's introduction to the Penelopiad and feel like they really desperately need to see that, it is on our YouTube channel. There is a link. I think there's a direct link to that video on the event page for the Penelopiad. So that may or may not be worth checking out. That's all I can say about that, I think, from my position. But yeah, so going to wind us up now. Folks, thanks so much for joining us. Miss you all so much. Can't wait to be training again. But yeah, thanks to those of you who've been coming and joining our online classes. It is an absolute pleasure to still be maintaining community contact and hanging out together and being silly and getting buff. So yeah. All right. See you, folks.